William Zabka and Ralph Macchio. This whole panel, though, is really going to be about Hayden's star turn this season. So the new spin-off series, the shady lawyer in Thailand.
Exactly.
I cannot wait for more. So
it was such a dream working with Thomas Ian Griffith. He is amazing. Ever since season 5, when we knew he was going to jail, I was like, I gotta be his lawyer. And working with him was just a dream.
Well, guys, you heard, even just listening to those final scenes in that 10th episode, I mean, holy shit, right? Things go down. How are you guys feeling now as we sort of head towards the end? We start to, like I mentioned, we're landing this plane. What are your emotions like? You're out there, you're doing a lot of press now, you're starting to talk to folks about the end of this journey, and it's been quite a journey. Ralph, temperature check, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I really am. I think that certainly Cobra Kai at this point, at episode 610, it ends in such a powerful way and shocking way for anything that has been done in the show. And you need to hit kind of bottom to come back up, and that's kind of where we are. I'm very excited. I have not seen the last 5 episodes, so I'm just as excited as you guys of how it all comes together. But it's set up to embrace that big 80s movie ending that I have a feeling we'll find and go forward. It feels right. It feels right to land the plane Cobra Kai proper.
Yeah.
People are saying, oh, you're sad or you're miserable. It's all over. It's ending now. This chapter is ending. I never say never with this franchise, but it feels right. It feels right that these guys got to do it on their terms, and I'm super proud that we had that opportunity.
Yeah. Billy, how about you?
Well, thanks you all for being here. Wasn't that an uplifting ending? I think this has been an amazing journey since we started this. How many, 7 years now is it? I mean, it's crazy, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy. This last season, I think we started in January and we ended in June. We did 15 episodes, kind of minimum 12-hour days, sometimes 14. Very little sleep, very little time to rehearse, very little time to choreograph. It's like you have to be an athlete. It's a marathon. It's nonstop. I mean, we crunch a lot into 6 days, 5 days for an episode. They pack a 25-pound ball into a 5-pound bag on this show, and we feel that. So, I mean, in one sense, I'm glad it's over because it's a lot. It takes a lot. You're away from your family and your kids for, it's just these blackout times. I missed a lot of my kids growing up. We all did. There's a sacrifice to this. But story-wise in the show, it's the right time to end it and the right way to end it. And what these guys wrote and put together in the journey in the maze, they put all these characters on, including ours, and the way they stick the landing in a way that's unexpected, uplifting, and honest, the way the show has been. It's a thrill, and it's the first time, since every season you have a pit in your stomach kind of like this. Like, this would be the end of a season normally. We have to wait a year for the final, So there's a resolve at the end of 6, at the end of the 3rd drop, that, I don't feel undone with the character. If that's it, it's a great ending for everybody. And that's just awesome. And we're so thankful we had 6 episodes or 6 seasons to get to tell the whole story these guys thought of from the beginning. They saw this from day one, and you know how it goes. Sometimes you don't get that far, and they cut the legs out mid-season and three seasons. So feels good, feels right. Excited to do this with Ralph and be out there on the trail. I'm really excited for these 5, and I haven't seen the final 5 either. They tell us about it, and I trust them. And
we've seen it.
We were in it, but it's awesome. So it's the right time for, as Ralph calls it, Cobra Kai proper to land. But these characters march on, so who knows?
Well, we are at quite a cliffhanger, quite an interesting point, having just watched that moment for the 3 of you. I mean, clearly, this sort of takes the show into slightly a new direction. The fact is, we haven't seen a shocking death like this up until now, and that's got to change a lot of things. So talk a little bit about this decision to end on this note, and what does this mean for the dojos, for karate in general, on the show moving forward?
I mean, we were thinking of, with the end of this episode, we wanted to make it unpredictable going forward. I mean, what does it mean? That is the question. We have all these characters that we've been following for all these years, and this tournament meant so much to all of them in all these different ways, and then it ends like this right now. So we have 5 episodes left to figure out, are they going to pick up the pieces? Is the tournament going to go back on? And how do these characters, react to what just happened, what you just saw? And this was not just for shock value. It was not just there to have a big crazy death, although having this crazy fight scene was definitely by design and very excited for it. But it was all based on where our characters were and where we are sending our characters going forward as we land the ship.
Yeah, the Sakai Taikai, to me, that's now the most important thing in the world. It's like the Nobel Prize, the Oscars, it's everything rolled into one. There's nothing bigger. So I don't know what's going to happen to this thing now, but it's huge. Talk about that scene, choreographing that scene. How long did it take for you guys to shoot that? I mean, you guys have done so many crazy, amazing fight scenes over the years, but this seemed to be even, next level with all the different dojos just going at it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, because we're probably going to say the same.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's amazing we were able to pull it off. Is really the big headline of it, given the time we have in front of us to write the show, to produce the show. It really is what Billy was saying before. These are not 16-hour days. This is not a documentary about the making of, one episode of Game of Thrones. This is like 4 days for the moment that Robbie got, thrust into Quan and he, sucker punched him. You have 3 or 4 days of very heavy lifting. And in order to pull off what you see in the final editorial cut, it was, a painstaking effort, in line with our director, Sherwin Shalati. And yeah.
He's back there.
Yeah, Sherwin, he's in the shadows somewhere. And, he directed the hell out of it. And the writer's room, just making sure that every punch, every kick, every time the camera moves has to be motivated. We can't just have, background performer number 3 coming in and punching somebody. We have to have set that up in previous episodes so to even get to that place, you have to care about, all of these little mini moments, and not just, the full-on crazy, like 2-on-1s. But I'll let Ralph talk about the actual physical tax and the stunt preparation and the choreography that goes into actually pulling that off.
What I was going to comment on was, and Billy and I talk about this all the time, and what people don't know is how little time we have to prep this and what the budget is of this show from what you see. Certainly in all departments, but none more than in the stunt department. Those guys, I mean, the board that they had every beat written out on was just like a hieroglyphics on the inside of a tomb in Egypt. Like just, and it's like, day 1, day 2, and by lunch we have to be out. It was just, it's really quite incredible. And then all of us, have to be on that same train. We all have to kind of share one brain as we're, jumping around. And some of this stuff we're just grabbing on the fly as you're chasing down. We're out of this location. And that was the biggest. And those 2 episodes we shot in block form, where we were shooting 9 and 10 together. So it took, not only from the stunt team, but from Sherwin's, perspective of having it. It's a disaster if you don't have some form of everyone working together, especially on the budget. So these stunt guys, I'm so rooting for them come this season. They deserve it.
The call sheet for this episode is hilarious because it's the biggest call sheet I've ever seen for anything, because you have everybody's double that are hardly used these days because these guys are so good with martial arts, but you also have all these stunt utility players. So when you have those big wide shots of people getting pushed and shoved and thrown off the stage, like all those people have to, go through the works. I think hair and makeup came in 3 days earlier to start the process of getting people ready for camera. It was really something.
What is it? You've got a massive stunt team, like over 90 people, right? So you've got this huge stunt team, but then you guys are also doing so much of your own karate. What is that like in working with the stunt teams and sort of collaborating with them for the two of you in sort of when they are fronting and mounting something as huge as this?
I mean, we wind up, we'll do a run, say if it were Billy and I, we would do a run ourselves, then we do a run of the beats with the opposite stunt person, and that would help expedite and move along, trying to use these days that should be 2 weeks to do that scene, not 3 days. You want to piggyback on that?
Well, I mean, that whole big melee fight at the end was shot also in a master, and that's actually happening like theater. So I mean, like everybody charged. So they have 90 stuntmen, and they have these pockets. Each one of those teams are black belts and stuntmen, and within their own little kind of micro group, they'll choreograph their own little fight, and each group, and then our choreographer will put it all together and time it. And then the most important thing is what these guys do with all the fights. All the fights have to tell a story. It can't just be karate for karate. So every fight has to tell a story and move the characters forward, move the story forward. And so you have these stunt guys that know what they're doing. Like sometimes we'll come to the set and these guys are doing backflips and kicks and stuff, and Ralph and I are like, "Are we fighting today? We haven't even seen our thing yet," because it's impossible for them. It's kind of like they're maybe a step ahead. So sometimes just on the fly, right before we step in, we've got our stunt guys that work something out, and we're learning it as they're shooting that over there. So we're on the side, and then it's okay. Now you're up, and then you go in, and it's really fast and furious like that. And we'll do it ourselves, and they'll do it with the stunt guys. And then they're done, and then they're moved on to the next thing. And you hope you're happy with your kicks and that you looked as good as you can, because it's just a fast train.
Yeah, but it's always collaborative too with the stunt team, and they know the Johnny Lawrence of it all, the design of the story of that fight and his style, and Daniel LaRusso's style, and so when something doesn't feel comfortable, you're adjusting in the moment too, and to tell the best version of the physical story that's going on. So it's not like
since Sherwin's here, I just want to say one thing, because I wish I could maybe post this someday, but I filmed the last bit, time is just against us. I mean, we maybe had 3 minutes left, and Sherwin had this water established where the kids are fighting downstairs in the Saikai Taike, and they run up the stairs, and there's people flying, everything had to go perfect. Oh, it was crazy, and I just happened to be filming it all. And it's amazing. I don't know, it was like a 4-minute sequence or something of non-stop fighting all through the bottom, up the stairs. And these are with the kids, with the actors, not even with the stunt people. And the clock is going tick, 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 and then boom, they got it. And I've never seen anybody happier. Sherwin was like sweating. He's like, "Yeah, we got it." And they all hug. I have that moment. I can't remember.
That was like 8 seconds to wrap.
I know.
8 seconds to wrap, and they got it. It was amazing. And it's like, that's the show we're making. It's like, go, go, go. And if you don't get it, you don't have it, So shout out to Sherman in the back. He rocked it.
I also want to shout out, Bob Bearden, Oberexel, who wrote the episode, the finale. But Bob's one of our writer-producers, and he was right by Sherwin's side throughout all of these fights, making sure that, we're getting every single story beat that's going on here. Going over to the stunt team throughout, watching all the fights and reporting back to us as we were dealing with some other things. And just making sure that this was as spectacular as it could be, and along with Sherwin, making sure that we're continuing to tell the story.
Yeah, and speaking of the story, we talked a little bit about that shocking finale, but I love, there's always like the Cobra Kai stakes, which maybe are not like your average stakes, but because I even love, ultimately, what's Silver's end game? It's to embarrass Miyagi-Do on global TV. It's kind of cute, but the fact is, this show ends with some real stakes, and suddenly the stakes have really heightened on this show. And going forward now, it's sort of a new level. What does that mean for your villains too, in having both Kreese and Silver there? What their motivations are? Ultimately, they haven't caused a death, but there is that possibility now.
Well, as Silver's attorney, I would say he has no responsibility whatsoever to the death of Quan. But yeah, the fun of this show is taking villainous characters and flipping it on their head and seeing them in a different light. So you'll see what happens in the last 5 episodes. Johnny Lawrence was the antagonist in the original Karate Kid, and now you're rooting for him. We really get in the head of all of our characters, including the villains. And it's so much fun in the writer's room. We have just an amazing ensemble, on screen and off screen, in the writer's room. And we're always talking about, how do you up the stakes, but also keep it real? And you'll see in the last 5 episodes, it's we bring it to a next level, but it's gonna ultimately hit home in a real, relatable way.
I would just add, since 1984, Kreese has been preaching strike first, strike hard, no mercy. He was the most no merciest than he's ever been in this 5 episodes, and we see, the knife that he brought, is the knife that ended that right there.
Yeah, and he looks shook at the end of the episode, as does Silver. So this could change a lot of things. But bringing it back to these two, because that's been some of the most fascinating and fun moments to see the relationship between these two evolve over the seasons to where we are now, where things still get shaky sometimes, but it really ends on a real positive note for Johnny and Daniel. They seem like kind of best friends at this point. How would you guys kind of characterize this relationship now?
Listen, it's that's been part of navigating the entire series, and these guys that are the ultimate enemies that become frenemies and then become friends, and see the through line is always that they recognize, at least at this point, that they both care for the kids and they're trying to do right by their beliefs. How they go about it and what roads they navigate to get there. It might be point A to B is straight, but each one takes these side streets that get thorny and not so smooth. But I think we're at the point where they're certainly by this episode. I mean, for Daniel LaRusso, certainly he's gone way out of balance, down a rabbit hole of misunderstanding or trying to understand who Miyagi was in full when he and completely loses balance in this section of the season. Like I said before, you have to kind of hit rock bottom to come back up. And what part of one of the things I love about how this episode ends, and it wasn't necessarily shot in that way fully, it was an editorial decision. I've spoken to Jon about this. At the end, you see Daniel seeing Quan with, he's trying to stop, he's trying to get there. And I think when we were actually shooting that, it was more, I was trying to get to Samantha, my daughter. And I think in the post of it all, this through line gave more stakes to LaRusso, especially at the point he's spiraled out of control and lost sight of the focus. And at this moment, it really ends, sets him up for these last 5, is how is he going to come back from that. And so, and then for Johnny in these episodes, he's trying to do right by these kids, but realizes, I mean, I'll let you take this from here, but you realize without Daniel in those moments, he's not quite as focused and balanced in what he needs to do.
I think even from the movie, I mean, if there was no Johnny Lawrence in his life, he never would have met Miyagi. He wouldn't be the Daniel LaRusso he is today. If Daniel LaRusso didn't crank kick Johnny Lawrence, he wouldn't have woken up to Kreese as a bad guy, and he wouldn't be where he is today. So sometimes your enemies are who you need the most, and they be your friends. And so these guys start out miles apart, but really there's a great episode season 2, season 1, different but same. So there's a lot of similarities. If you strip them to their core, they're both passionate, they're both earnest, they both wear their hearts on their sleeves, they're both fast triggered in their different ways, but they were trained differently. He had Miyagi, he learned balance. I had Kreese, he strike first, strike hard, and that's like the blueprint of these guys. So they're far apart, but they're similar enough, and they work it through. So what's been great through all the different fightings and him kicking the door open and this and that at the apartment and our scraps and everything is every time that they kind of come head to head, as long as they have their eyes on the prize, and that's these kids. That's the one thing they have in common. So it's kind of like a triangle. It's like you both have your eye on that. It's like they're coming at it together, and every fight, every argument, everything brings them closer and closer together, where there's common ground. And so we're at that point in the story now where they're closest that they've ever been, and they work through a lot of those kinks. So Which is a great message for, I think it's a universal message too that translates. You see people trying to work things out, you know. But it's super fun to play, and you know, we laugh. I mean, how many times when if I have to say, "This is it, man," you know, one more time. I think the last time I'm like, didn't I just say this last season? I gotta say, and then I have to say like, "We're done." I thought we said we were done last time. We're finished now, man. You know, and then the next day we're in a hotel room together. And I'm like, "What? Beer costs $9?" You know what I mean? Which is these guys, you know. So like, we'll be there, and we just laugh sometimes. We just, can you believe we're still doing this?
But we're still learning new things about these characters too. Like for example, Johnny can fly from Barcelona to LA, back to Barcelona in 24 hours and not have jet lag. That's just amazing. He can immediately go back and fight.
Johnny's default is jet lag. He's shaking the jet lag off through these flights.
But I'm curious, what have you kind of like learned the most over the years now about maybe Daniel that you didn't, but that maybe you didn't know at the start of Cobra Kai? You've been with this character for so long, but you're still learning new
Let me
things.
say one thing just because it's right here. But the one time I remember when I fight Kreese in the dojo, and Kreese is about to kill me, and it's the first time where Daniel shows
season
up.
3.
Yeah, season 3, and Daniel shows up, and you know, I'm looking at him fighting Kreese, and they go through a plate window together, you know. And I remember as an actor and as a character, a turning point in me. Like just watching that and opening my heart up to that changed it to another level. It was like, you know, suddenly this guy that I've been bumping against is, you know, your enemy's your friend all of a sudden.
Yeah, that was a strong moment and a turning point for them. I mean, it doesn't take too long, just one argument, a disagreement about a movie, and they're back at it again. You know?
Both very hot-headed.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that is the thing
yes,
that's
knee-jerk and hot-headed. But the question was what I learned about LaRusso or about Lawrence?
About LaRusso.
Yeah, I mean, he's, you know, I think the thing, what's interesting about him, and also part of the challenge of playing him in Cobra Kai, is finding that genuine truth, that truthful point of where you slip and fall and make repeated mistakes, because we have a 65 episode narrative based on a concept of 2 warring dojos, which is where it started. It's finding the honesty in where the reactions are and how he bounces off Johnny Lawrence or anything for that matter. And so what we've been able to do, and in this season, certainly in season 6, with opening up this Miyagi Pandora's box.
Yeah, the mystery of Miyagi.
Is to get internal and inside of him. That's been the learning, that's been the stuff, and some stuff coming in the next 5 episodes I'm really excited about, because we see it here, even in the opening of episode 10 with this nightmare where he's fighting Miyagi, which is the first time we've done that. Yeah. And we're inside his head, going down his insecurities. And so that's what I'm learning through that type of narrative. He's an element. They've always kept John Judge, and they've always kept that element of the kid who wouldn't leave well enough alone and would just try to get that last jab in, and they run that through this entire series. And sometimes we battle that out and figure out ways to collaborate, where I'm always about truth and honesty, and we also have to make something entertaining, at the same time. So, unearthing some of that and mining some of the internal struggles and his own flaws have been interesting to me.
I'm always impressed that LaRusso Auto still does as well as it does.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other
Daniel is never working.
It's all Amanda. Amanda's really the secret sauce.
She is the secret sauce. So we're talking about sort of the fans especially have really embraced Cobra Kai over the years, and it's really rejuvenated the entire Karate Kid franchise. And the three of you, I mean, you've seen it over the years, and just this rabid fan base. And how is that fueling what you guys are doing, and what has that meant for you in the writer's room in sort of coming up with these stories? And
as you stare at a sea of headbands.
I'll say for all of us, this was a show that came about because the three of us are fans. I mean, we all saw the movie when we were young. We saw that in the movie theater when we were like 6 years old, and it was just such a huge, impactful moment. And as we've gotten older, we've been able to go from, recognizing, sort of identifying with Daniel, to identifying with or to recognizing the ridiculousness of the karate gang on motorcycles, Cobra Kai. First you're scared of them, then you start to think, wow, there's something kind of crazy about what's going on here. Identifying with Miyagi, and we put all of our passion for this franchise into the show, and what's been crazy to see is just the worldwide reaction from fans. We hear from them every single day, many times a day, about how the show has impacted their lives or just made them feel like kids again, or we meet, our children's friends who are obsessed with the show in a whole new kind of way. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I have the soundtrack on vinyl. I put it on sometimes just to pump myself up. But I mean, the extensions too of Cobra Kai and what you've seen, and the fact that this world is continuing. Ralph, the new Karate Kid with Jackie Chan. We're looking forward to that. So the new chapter in Daniel LaRusso. But I know you guys have another thing to share about what's coming up for the fans.
Well, there's two things we love about the Cobra Kai fandom. The merch, kind of feels like when we see Cobra Kai, colors in the wild, it's like running into a member of our own motorcycle club. I give nods to people, and they're like, why is that guy nodding at us? Nice what? A stranger. The other thing we love is just the amount of fan art, just that fan art since season 1 has flooded the internet in a way that was it was born of the, I want to give to this, to this tree that's, this seed that's being planted. And every season, as we add, 900 more characters, the art just grows and grows, and it challenges, us and the marketing department to, come up with bigger and crazier one sheets to match the enthusiasm of the audience. So something that's coming together right now that we're announcing is a fan art contest where the best piece or pieces of fan art that's going to be voted on and looked at very carefully will become official Cobra Kai merchandise that will be for sale, branded, licensed, by Cobra Kai, by Netflix, Sony. So that's something that look for on the socials. And if you are a budding artist or a established fan artist, maybe you can create the next Cobra Kai t-shirt that I nod at and point at in public and make people feel welcome.
Awesome. Well, in our final moments, any sort of thing that even surprised you this season, Ralph and Billy, both of you guys. What sort of twist and turn even maybe shocked you in season 6?
I'll go first and you can tie it up. So, and this kind of goes back to your question about what I've learned. And one thing that's really interesting is what I learned is in season 1, after a specific scene that never made it into the show, was that that it's not just me anymore. I don't just own Johnny Lawrence. Like, these 3 guys stepped into the skin of Johnny Lawrence and puppeteered me, sometimes against my will, and made me say and do things that I was like, this is never gonna work. But they always kept they kept true to the heart of Johnny, and it's been a whiplash, because at the very beginning, when I built Cobra Kai, I'll get it together. But when Kreese takes Cobra Kai away, I'm like, what do you mean he takes Cobra? Like, I had these real reactions, like, what do you mean he takes Cobra Kai away? Kreese just came in at the end, how does he take Cobra Kai? Now what? They're like, oh, he opens a new dojo. I'm like, okay, cool. Then they're like, hey, what do you think of Eagle Fang? I'm like, what the hell? Eagle Fang? I'm like, this sucks. It was the stupidest of all the names, and they picked it. I'm like, okay.
That's the point.
Yeah, so now I have to be Eagle Fang, and I have to say bite like an eagle, and all these things. You know what I mean? So again, it's not me, it's the writers. It just goes really to these guys and their talent and their love for the characters, but always keeping it grounded. And so here we go. Now the last thing. Now it's like Eagle Fang has to go. Now what? Are we gonna do Miyagi Fang? No. He joins Miyagi though. Like the complete opposite of anything I'd ever expect for Johnny to do, which is like swallows his pride, give up his stuff, and bow to Miyagi. It's like, what? So like, it's really happening in real life with me, and I read these pages. It's like turning the pages. So here we are in this, and that continues all the way to the last 5. But the difference is, it's like, oh, this makes sense now. Like, you're gonna wanna watch it from the beginning to the end, knowing the end later. Maybe not all 65 episodes in one binge, but you know what I mean? So there's lots of surprises. I don't think it's specific that I wanna share, but the whole thing has been a delightful surprise. And just as an actor, whether it's Johnny Lawrence or whatever, to get play a character so 3-dimensional, and it's heartfelt and funny and all those things, like, that's what you sign up for when you do this. You want to make an impact on somebody. In fact, it's tied into Karate Kid, has all these great themes and the fan base and all that. It just makes it like surreal. So thanks to these three guys. There's a big applause for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we talk all day about, I'm so fascinated by what happens with Johnny and Kreese and that relationship, as we saw in that final episode. I mean, there's a lot, but Ralph.
Yeah, no, listen, we have been, Billy and I have been run through the wash a few times, many spin cycles with these characters, and we always talk at the beginning of the season, John, Josh, and Hayden give us, each carefully keep us separated as they give us our arcs for the season. So
Over 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes to tell you the whole shit. Ready?
by design, I remember one time distinctly saying, hey, let's all get on the phone and talk about how to land this. And all of a sudden I got another email saying, well, you're scheduled at noon and Billy's scheduled at 1. I think they thought better of putting us both on the phone together because we're so protective of these guys, about these characters. And I've walked the streets, I'll speak for Daniel Russo, I walked the streets in these shoes for 40 plus years. And so, I always talk about honesty and truth in the character, and that's always what I'm looking for because I can play it. The most difficult scenes I have on this show is when I butt up against what I feel is truthful and honest. And sometimes I look at the bigger of it all because it is a large canvas. It's not just me, and so that's where there needs to be trust. And then we do collaborate on all this stuff, character-wise, performance-wise, and depth-wise going forward. So I mean, I would have never, if you asked me 20 years ago if one of them had done this, and at this point. And gone on this journey on where this train has taken me, I would have never imagined that. But it's the bottom line at the end, at the beginning of the season was the question I had. I probably asked John, where does he land? That's all I care about. I just want to know where the character landed. I'll jump through the hoops and wear the face paint and jump off the cliff and punch Johnny in the face if it services his narrative. It's cool, but where does it land? And that's where the comfort was, because we were always working toward the same goal. And that's because they care. I said this just yesterday. It's because they care so much about these original films and these characters, and that's why we have the richness in our performances and in the storytelling.
What's especially incredible, you hear him say 4 decades of playing this character, but little known fact, Ralph Macchio is only 35. So it's incredible how he did that. Congratulations on your star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But more importantly for all of you, congratulations. We've got 5 more episodes to go, so I can't wait to see what happens. There's so much more to talk about. The young stars of the show who are incredible as well. I wish we had more time, but these folks are hungry. I believe we do. We do have a lunch, but also very importantly, if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2 of season 6, go right now to Netflix, binge them, catch up on the series, get ready for the final 5 episodes, which are coming soon. But in the meantime, let's go hang out now. We've got a little reception coming up. Thank you so much, the stars and creators of Cobra Kai.
Thank you.